I got home late on Christmas night, expecting to find the house quiet because Chloe was supposed to be at my mother's place. Big dinner, extended family, the kind of Christmas she'd been circling on the calendar for weeks like it was the event of her lifetime. Instead, the first thing I noticed when I opened the door was the silence. Not peaceful silence, the kind that sits heavy in your chest. Then I saw her shoes by the door, her coat hung up neatly, and on the kitchen table, a plate with crumbs and a half-eaten sandwich that looked like it had been assembled by someone who didn't really know what they were doing. "Chloe?" I called out, my voice echoing through the house. "I'm here, Mom." Her voice came from the living room, small and careful. I found her sitting on the couch in the same red dress she'd worn when I dropped her off earlier that afternoon, the dress she'd picked out specifically because she wanted to look nice for family photos. Her hands were folded in her lap, and she was staring at the dark TV screen like it might suddenly turn itself on and tell her what to do. "Sweetheart, why are you home?" I asked, already feeling something cold spreading through my stomach. "You're supposed to be at Grandma Barbara's." Chloe's shoulders tightened. "I was there." I sat down beside her, close enough to see her face clearly. Her eyes were red. Not crying right now red, the kind of red that comes from crying earlier and trying really hard to stop. "What happened?" She swallowed. "Grandma said there wasn't room." The words didn't make sense at first. I just stared at her, waiting for the rest of the explanation that would make this logical. "Room for what?" "For me." Her voice cracked on the last word. My heart dropped straight through the floor. "What do you mean there wasn't room for you?" Chloe's fingers twisted together. "I knocked on the door like you told me. Aunt Kim answered and she looked surprised. Then she called Grandma and Grandma came to the door and said—" She stopped, took a breath. "She said the house was full and they didn't have space for extra people this year." "Extra people?" I repeated, the words tasting like acid. "You're her granddaughter." "I know." Chloe's voice went flat. "She said maybe next year they'd plan better." I felt my hands curl into fists before I could stop them. I forced them to relax because Chloe didn't need to see me lose it. Not yet. "Did you go inside at all?" She shook her head. "I could see everyone through the window. Tyler and Kolek were there. I could hear them laughing, and Aunt Kim's kids were running around." Her voice got smaller. "Logan saw me and waved, but then Grandma closed the door." The image of my daughter standing outside in the cold, watching her cousins celebrate Christmas through a window, made something sharp twist in my chest. "How did you get home?" "She walked." She said it like it was obvious, like of course that's what you do when your grandmother shuts the door in your face. "You walked?" My voice came out higher than I intended. "Chloe, that's over 2 miles. "I know the way," she said quickly, like she needed to defend herself. "It just took a while because I had all the gifts." That's when I noticed them. The bags lined up perfectly by the entryway, exactly where she must have set them when she came in. The gifts she'd spent weeks planning, the ornament she'd made by hand for her grandmother, the scarf she'd saved her allowance to buy for her cousin, all of them sitting there, unwanted. "You carried all of those home?" She nodded. My hands hurt a little, but it's okay. It wasn't okay. None of this was okay. "Why didn't you call me?" I asked, even though I could already feel the answer coming. "My phone died right before I got there," she whispered. "I asked Grandma if I could use hers to call you, and she said—" Her voice broke. "She said it would just make things harder, that you were probably busy anyway, and I should just go home and we'd talk after the holiday." "She told you to walk home alone on Christmas?" She nodded, and a tear finally slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away fast, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Mom." "No." I pulled her close and she collapsed against me like she'd been holding herself together with string. "You don't dare apologize. You didn't do anything wrong." "I ruined Christmas," she sobbed into my shoulder. "You didn't ruin anything," I said, my voice steady even though I was shaking inside. "They did." We sat like that for a long time, Chloe crying into my sweater while I stared at those perfect gift bags and felt rage building in my chest like a pressure cooker. But I didn't call my mother. I didn't scream. Chloe didn't need to hear that. She didn't need to feel like she'd caused a war. So I swallowed every angry word, held my daughter tighter, and let something click into place in my mind. I didn't make a scene. I took action, and by the next morning, my mother's life would start falling apart in ways she couldn't imagine. I wish I could say my mother became like this overnight, that she woke up one morning and suddenly decided her granddaughter was disposable. But the truth is, this had been building for years. I just hadn't wanted to see how bad it had gotten. My mother, Barbara Rose Johnson, had always been the kind of woman who kept score. Not openly, she was too smart for that, but she remembered every slight, every favor, every time she felt someone hadn't given her the respect she deserved, and she'd been keeping score on me since I was born. I was the mistake child, not planned, not wanted. My parents already had Kim, who was perfect in every way that mattered to them, smart, obedient, married well, had children at appropriate times. I showed up 6 years later when they thought they were done, and my mother never let me forget that I derailed her plans. "You were such a difficult baby," she used to say, the same way someone might say, "This stain won't come out." Not cruel, just factual, like my existence was a problem that needed to be managed. When I got pregnant with Chloe at 23, unmarried, barely out of college, it confirmed everything my mother had always believed about me. I was irresponsible, I was impulsive, I was an embarrassment. The father, Tyler Duncan, was someone I'd met during what I thought was a promising relationship. He stuck around just long enough to make it clear he had no intention of being a father, then vanished like smoke. I never asked him for anything because I knew I wouldn't get it. My mother's first response when I told her I was pregnant was, "Well, I hope you're not expecting us to raise it." Not "congratulations," not "we'll figure this out," just immediate defensive walls going up around her wallet and her time. My father, Terrence Johnson, mostly just looked disappointed, like I'd confirmed his worst fears about what kind of daughter I was. They bought exactly one baby gift, a onesie. My mother presented it at a family dinner like she'd donated a kidney. "We want to help," she announced to the room. "Family supports family." Then she went back to her life and expected me to be grateful for that single onesie for the rest of mine. Kim, my older sister, played the role of concerned sibling perfectly. She'd show up occasionally with advice about parenting, none of which she actually followed herself. She'd cry when it made her look compassionate. She'd post on social media about supporting family through hard times. But the second anything required actual work, she disappeared. I moved into a tiny apartment and raised Chloe alone. I worked full-time as a paralegal because it was stable and the hours were predictable. I took online courses when Chloe slept. I learned to cook cheap meals that didn't taste cheap. I became an expert at stretching dollars and making magic out of nothing. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And honestly, survival suited me better than begging ever would. The one person who didn't treat me like a burden was my grandmother, Rose. She was my mother's mother, and they always had a complicated relationship. Rose was blunt, practical, and had no patience for pretense. She told me once, "Your mother thinks suffering is a competition she has to win. Don't play that game." Rose wasn't wealthy, but she was smart with money. She'd saved carefully her whole life, made good decisions with the small inheritance she got from her own parents. She lived in a modest house she'd paid off decades ago, drove a car until it literally couldn't run anymore, and believed that spending money on status symbols was for people who didn't have anything real to offer the world. But she helped me. Quietly. She'd show up with groceries she claimed she'd accidentally bought too much of. She paid for Chloe's preschool for a year when I was struggling. She never made me feel small for needing help. "You're doing fine," she'd tell me when I apologized for not having it all together. "You showed up. That's more than most people do." As Rose got older, she started having health issues, heart problems mostly. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but enough that she needed to slow down. She started talking about her plans, about what would happen when she was gone. My mother became very interested in those conversations. Rose owned her house outright. It was worth maybe $400,000, maybe more depending on the market. She also had savings, investments, the accumulated financial security of someone who'd been careful for 83 years. My mother started visiting more. Suddenly, she was concerned about Rose's well-being. Suddenly, she was posting photos of quality time with Mom on Facebook. Suddenly, she was very involved in Rose's life. Rose saw through it immediately. "Your mother thinks I'm going to die tomorrow and leave her everything," she told me once, completely deadpan. "She's going to be disappointed." I laughed, but Rose wasn't joking. "I'm leaving the house to you," she said, "and most of the savings, some to Chloe in a trust. Your mother gets enough to prove I didn't forget her, but that's it." "Rose, you don't have to." "I'm not doing it for you," she interrupted. "I'm doing it because you actually show up. You check on me. You bring Chloe to visit because you want to, not because you're angling for something. That matters." I didn't tell my mother. Rose asked me not to. "Let her find out when I'm dead," Rose said cheerfully. "I'll enjoy knowing I got the last word." But Rose didn't die. She kept going, sharp as ever, outliving everyone's expectations. And my mother's attention started to fade again as it became clear Rose wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. That's when the exclusions started. Small things at first, forgetting to invite me to family dinners, not including Chloe in cousin group chats. My mother would post photos of family gatherings I hadn't known about, and when I asked, she'd say, "Oh, it was last minute, I didn't think you'd be able to come." Chloe noticed. She'd see photos of her cousins together and ask why she wasn't there. I made excuses because what was I supposed to say? Your grandmother doesn't want you around because she's decided you're not worth the effort? But Christmas was supposed to be different. My mother had specifically invited Chloe. She'd made a point of it. "The whole family will be there," she'd said. "Chloe should come." I should have known better. I should have seen it for what it was. But I wanted to believe my mother could be decent for one holiday. I wanted Chloe to have the big family Christmas she'd been dreaming about. Instead, my daughter stood outside in the cold and was told there wasn't room for her. And now, sitting in my living room with Chloe finally asleep on the couch, I stared at my phone and made a decision. I didn't call my mother to scream at her. I called Rose. Rose answered on the second ring. "Chloe's home, isn't she?" I shouldn't have been surprised that she already knew. Rose always had a sixth sense for when my mother was being terrible. "How did you know?" I asked, my voice raw. "Because Barbara called me an hour ago," Rose said, her voice hard. "She wanted to make sure I knew she was hosting the whole family for Christmas. Made a point of it. Didn't mention Chloe once." My throat tightened. She turned her away at the door. The silence on the other end of the line was the kind that precedes storms. "Explain," Rose said, each word clipped. So I did. I told her everything. How Chloe had knocked and been met with surprise. How my mother had said there wasn't room. How my daughter had walked home alone carrying gifts nobody wanted. How she tried to call me and been refused. When I finished, Rose was quiet for a long moment. "I need you to listen carefully," finally she said, "because I'm going to tell you something and then I'm going to fix this. Rose, your mother has spent the last 5 years telling everyone that I'm leaving her everything when I die. She's told relatives. She's told friends. She acts like my house is already hers, like my money is already in her account. She's been planning her inheritance like it's a sure thing." "I know," I said quietly. "She's wrong," Rose said, and there was steel in her voice. "My will is very clear. The house goes to you. The majority of the savings go to you and Chloe. Your mother gets a token amount to prove I didn't forget her, but that's it." I'd known this, but hearing Rose say it out loud with that edge of finality made it real in a different way. "But here's what your mother doesn't know," Rose continued. 2 years ago, I revised my will again. I added a clause. If she ever excludes you or Chloe from family events, if she ever treats you less than family, she gets nothing, 0. The token amount disappears. My breath caught. Rose, you didn't. I did, Rose said firmly, and I told my lawyer to watch for exactly this. I told him that if I ever found out Barbara was excluding my great-granddaughter, he was to consider that clause activated. You can do that? I can do whatever I want. It's my will. Rose's voice softened slightly. And tomorrow morning, I'm calling him to make it official. Your mother turned away a child on Christmas, my great-grandchild. She doesn't get to benefit from my life's work after that. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, trying to process what Rose was telling me. There's more, Rose said. The house I live in, I've been planning to sell it and move somewhere smaller, easier to manage with my heart condition. The house is worth about $420,000. I was going to put the money in savings and let it be part of the estate. Okay, I said, not sure where this was going. I'm not doing that anymore, Rose said. I'm selling the house and I'm giving you the money now, while I'm alive, as a gift. Your mother can't contest a gift. She can only contest an inheritance. Rose, that's too much. It's exactly right, Rose interrupted. You need stability. Chloe needs stability, and I need to know that you're taken care of before I'm gone. This isn't charity. This is me making sure my money goes where I want it to go. I couldn't speak. The weight of what she was offering, the enormity of it, pressed against my chest. There's a house for sale 3 blocks from you, 4 bedrooms, fully accessible for someone with mobility issues. It's $385,000. We can afford it with room for spare. I'll live with you, we'll make it work, and your mother can live with the consequences of her choices. She's going to lose her mind. Good, Rose said simply. Let her. We talked for another hour, making plans, figuring out logistics. By the time we hung up, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because of the money, because someone was finally on my side in a way that mattered. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the living room, watching Chloe sleep and waited for the sun to rise. By noon the next day, everything had started moving. Rose called her lawyer first thing. Then she called her real estate agent. By 2 o'clock, her house was listed and she'd scheduled viewings for the property near me. My phone rang at 2:47 p.m. My mother. I answered. Hello? What the hell did you do? Her voice was shaking with rage. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play stupid. Rose called me. She said she's cutting me out of her will. She said I don't deserve anything because of yesterday. I took a slow breath. Then maybe you shouldn't have turned away your granddaughter on Christmas. She's being ridiculous. My mother's voice rose to a shriek. There wasn't enough space. It was a logistics issue. You had 18 people in the house. You didn't have space for one more child? You're twisting this. I'm not twisting anything. You looked my daughter in the face and told her she wasn't welcome. You refused to let her call me. You made her walk home alone on Christmas. And now you're upset because there are consequences. You poisoned her against me, my mother screamed. You went crying to Rose and made her feel sorry for you. I told her the truth. That's all I did. This is about the money, my mother hissed. You've always been jealous. You've always wanted what Kim and I have. What do you have? I asked, genuinely curious. A mother who keeps score? A family that excludes children when it's convenient? What exactly am I jealous of? There was a pause. Then my mother said something that made my blood run cold. Rose is old. She's not thinking clearly. We'll get this fixed. You'll get what fixed? She's not competent to make these decisions, my mother said, and her voice had gone calculating. We'll talk to her doctor. We'll show she's not in her right mind. We'll get guardianship if we have to. I felt ice spread through my veins. You're going to try to declare her incompetent? She's clearly being influenced, my mother said. She's vulnerable. She needs protection. Protection from what? From making decisions you don't like? From you, my mother spat. You've manipulated her. You've taken advantage of an elderly woman. We're going to fix this. The line went dead.
Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. We see every single comment and it means the world to us. Thank you so much for your support. Now, back to the story.
I sat there, phone in my hand, understanding exactly what my mother was planning. She was going to try to take control of Rose's life. She was going to use Rose's age and health issues as weapons to override her autonomy. I called Rose immediately. "She's going to try to get guardianship," I said as soon as she answered. "She's going to claim you're incompetent." "Let her try," Rose said, and she sounded almost amused. "I had my lawyer prepare for this years ago. I have documentation from 3 different doctors confirming I'm of sound mind. I have videos of myself explaining my decisions recorded with witnesses. I have everything we need to prove I know exactly what I'm doing." "Rose, your mother thinks I'm a fragile old woman she can control. She's about to learn otherwise." It took 3 days for my mother to make her move. She filed an emergency petition for guardianship, claiming Rose was being financially exploited and no longer capable of managing her own affairs. The court date was set for 2 weeks later. In the meantime, my mother's lawyer requested a temporary freeze on Rose's assets, which the judge denied after Rose's lawyer submitted the documentation proving she was competent. During those 2 weeks, Rose's house sold. It sold fast and for asking price because the market was good and the house was well maintained. The closing was scheduled for January 15th. My mother found out and filed an emergency motion to stop the sale. That failed too. On January 15th, Rose sold her house. The money hit her account the next day. On January 17th, she gifted me $385,000 to purchase the house 3 blocks from my apartment. On January 20th, we closed on that property. It was all perfectly legal, all documented, all done while Rose was demonstrably competent and acting of her own free will. By the time the guardianship hearing arrived, there was nothing to fight over. Rose had already distributed her assets the way she wanted. She'd already moved in with me. She'd already made her choices clear. The judge took one look at the evidence, the medical evaluations, the video testimony, the witness statements, and dismissed my mother's petition with prejudice. "Mrs. Johnson," the judge said, looking my mother over her glasses, "your mother is clearly capable of making her own decisions. The fact that you disagree with those decisions does not make her incompetent. This petition borders on elder abuse. If you file anything like this again, there will be sanctions." My mother's face went white. Kim, sitting beside her, looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Rose, sitting in her wheelchair next to me, smiled serenely. That night, my mother called me one last time. "You've destroyed this family," she said, her voice shaking with what might have been tears or might have been rage. I couldn't tell and didn't care. "I didn't destroy anything. You did that when you closed the door in Chloe's face." "She's a child. She would have gotten over it." "Maybe, but you won't." I hung up, and then I blocked her number. Rose sold most of her remaining possessions except for the things she wanted to keep. Her savings, minus the amount she had gifted me, went into a trust for Chloe's education. Her will was revised one final time to make everything crystal clear. Kim tried to reach out once, claiming she hadn't known what Barbara was planning, claiming she would have invited Chloe if she'd known. I didn't respond. Actions matter more than excuses, and Kim had stood by and watched my daughter get turned away without saying a word. The house we bought is beautiful. 4 bedrooms, fully accessible, with a yard Chloe loves. Rose has the master bedroom on the first floor with an attached bathroom. Chloe's room is 3 times the size of her old one. I have a home office where I can take my online law school classes because Rose insisted I finish my degree. "You've been surviving long enough," she told me. "Time to start thriving." This Christmas, we had dinner at our house, just the 3 of us. We cooked together, made too much food, and watched Christmas movies until Chloe fell asleep on the couch between us. It was quiet, it was simple, it was perfect. My phone buzzed once during dinner, a text from an unknown number. "I hope you're happy. You've taken everything from us." I showed it to Rose. She read it, snorted, and deleted it. Wrong. We didn't take anything. We just stopped letting them take from us. She was right. This wasn't about revenge. This was about protection. This was about making sure the people who showed up, who cared, who loved without conditions, that those people were taken care of. My mother lost a house she never actually owned. She lost money she was never entitled to. She lost access to people she treated as disposable. She didn't lose anything that was ever really hers. But Chloe gained something priceless. She gained a home where she's wanted, a great-grandmother who chose her, a mother who finally has the resources to give her the life she deserves. And me? I gained proof that sometimes the family you build is stronger than the family you're born into. So tell me, did we go too far or not far enough? Because from where I'm sitting, with my daughter asleep beside me and Rose humming in the kitchen, I think we got it exactly right. Epilogue. 6 months after Christmas, Rose was diagnosed with early-stage congestive heart failure. The doctor said it was manageable with medication and lifestyle changes, but it was a reminder that time isn't infinite. Rose took the news with typical practicality. "Well," she said, "at least I got my affairs in order before this became an issue." My mother found out through the family grapevine. Someone told someone who told Kim, who told Barbara. She sent flowers to the house with a card that said, "Thinking of you, Mom. Love always." Rose threw them in the trash without reading the card. Too late, too little. I don't need flowers from someone who only shows up when she thinks she might inherit something. Barbara tried to visit twice. Both times, Rose refused to see her. The second time, Barbara stood on the porch and yelled through the door that she had a right to see her mother, that I was keeping them apart, that she'd call the police if she had to.
If you're enjoying this story so far, please take just 1 second to drop a like and leave a comment. It really helps us keep creating these stories for you, and we genuinely appreciate every single one of you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, let's get back to...
Rose rolled her wheelchair to the door, opened it, and said, "I'm the one who doesn't want to see you. Leave, or I'll call the police myself." Barbara left. Kim sent an email 3 months later. It was long and rambling, full of apologies and explanations. She claimed she'd been caught in the middle and hadn't known how to handle the situation. She said she missed us. She said she wanted to make things right. I read it once and then archived it without responding. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Chloe asked about her grandmother once, about 6 months after everything happened. We were planting flowers in the garden and she suddenly stopped digging and looked at me. "Do you think Grandma Barbara misses me?" she asked. I sat back on my heels and considered the question carefully. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I do know that people who love you don't make you wonder if you're wanted." Chloe nodded slowly. "Great-Grandma Rose never makes me wonder." "No," I agreed, "she doesn't." "Then I don't need Grandma Barbara," Chloe said, and went back to digging. It was the last time she asked. Rose lived for 3 more years after that Christmas. Good years, full of chess games and garden projects and quiet dinners. She saw Chloe start high school. She saw me graduate from law school. She saw the family we'd built together thrive in ways she'd hoped for, but never quite believed would happen. When she died, it was peacefully, in her sleep, with both Chloe and me in the house. The will went through probate without any challenges. Everything was so thoroughly documented, so clearly explained, that there was nothing for my mother to contest, even if she'd wanted to. Barbara showed up at the funeral. She sat in the back and didn't speak to anyone. When she tried to approach me afterward, I simply walked away. There was nothing left to say. The house Rose had lived in with us, the one we'd bought together, was paid off with life insurance money she'd quietly maintained. It was ours, free and clear. Chloe's college fund was fully funded. My law school loans were paid off. We had stability, security, and peace. At the wake, someone asked me if I felt guilty about what had happened with my mother, if I thought maybe I should have tried harder to maintain the relationship. I thought about Chloe standing in the cold on Christmas, carrying gifts no one wanted. I thought about my mother closing the door in her face. I thought about the years of being treated like a burden, like a problem, like someone whose needs were always too much. No, I said, I don't feel guilty at all. Because the truth is, some people spend their whole lives taking. They take love, take time, take energy, and they never give anything back except expectations and disappointment. Rose taught me that you don't owe those people anything, not your guilt, not your peace, not another chance to hurt you. She taught me that protection is love, that boundaries are love, that choosing yourself and your child over people who don't value you isn't selfishness, it's survival. And she taught me that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone isn't money or property or things. It's the knowledge that they matter, that they're wanted, that they deserve to be treated with dignity and care. That's what Rose gave Chloe that Christmas. Not a house, not money, the certainty that she was worth fighting for. And that's worth more than any inheritance ever could be. So no, I don't feel guilty. I feel grateful. Grateful that Rose had the courage to act when it mattered. Grateful that she chose us when no one else would. Grateful that my daughter will grow up knowing what real love looks like. And if my mother wants to see that as cruelty, as revenge, as punishment, let her. The truth is much simpler. We didn't punish her, we just stopped rewarding her for treating us badly. And that made all the difference.